All right. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Friday. This is your girl, Shantanique Langston. I am, of course, your personal and professional relationship coach. I'm the creator of the Relationship Conference. And welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations. I am super excited tonight to finally have my sis back, Winter. She is going to share her amazing story with us. The title of this segment is called He Tried It. And we are here to really help women understand balance when it comes to relationships and dealing with men and following your instincts,
Yeah.
following your intuition, using your discernment on the first go round. All right. And
Yeah.
she has the tea. It's so much has happened with her. When I first met Winter, she was I think she was divorced about what 15. How long you were married for?
15 years.
15 years. And she was single. And then when we got back on again, she was engaged to be married. And she was a part of my conference back in
Yep.
2020,
Yep.
2020 and with her husband. And now she is single again.
Yep.
I know you like, what? So I'm still shocked. Um, Winter reached out to me, what was it, back in January?
Yeah.
Think January. And I thought that somebody had hacked your page because as influencers, when you're growing, people start to hack. And I'm seeing
Yeah.
that a lot lately. So I was like, let me email her. I don't have her number. Let me just email her to make sure this is confirmation because I saw the message on two
Yeah.
pages. That's why I was like, oh no, this is not her. This is not her. I'm like, no, no, somebody playing. Let me tell her, somebody your account,
Yeah.
and you were like, no, unfortunately. I'm like, unfortunately, this is not her. I could
Yeah.
not believe it. So I said, all right. So I know you had to go through your process and I respect boundaries. I said, when she's
Yeah.
ready, I know she was going to share her story on the
Yeah.
platform. And you guys know, if you've been following me for the past couple of years, I'm not going to shortchange you. I'm going to
Yeah.
give you the real, honest truth about relationships. And Winter's also a relationship coach. I mean, she's been in the game way longer than I have. And what I will tell you is that it is not easy, even as influencers. She's living her life out loud, even on a bigger platform. Okay, so I'm gonna just turn it over and have you go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and what you're doing right now, and we'll get
Yeah.
started.
So I will say I'm not a relationship coach anymore, but I
Okay.
was for a number of years, which is how we got connected. So I would say more so now I'm a professional and I call it a spiritual life coach because I do walk hand in hand with a lot of women of faith. And
Okay.
sometimes that includes relationships. So sometimes it gets incorporated in there, but I don't necessarily identify myself as a relationship coach. I mostly speak now, and I travel a lot. That's what my life has been for the last few years. Speaking and ministering and all that jazz. But most recently, most people know me from the first season of Love and Marriage DC. And so I went into reality TV, which has been interesting. And that is where my audience really, for the first time, learns about the demise of my marriage. That they know of. And so that's how, Shantanique and I got connected because I was engaged and I was extremely vocal about really my platform at the time was abstinence and waiting on the man of God, waiting on the right person. And let me just tell you, yeah, it's just been a tremendous experience for me, a learning experience. But yeah, I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I am a professional and spiritual life coach. I am a media personality. That is who Winter is by profession. But I like to say, most importantly, I am a woman of faith. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I am a mom of four incredible children, and I am an educated Black woman, and I am in doctoral school, and hopefully will finish sometime before Jesus returns. But that is really my life in a nutshell. Heavy into philanthropic endeavors, work with a number of organizations, and so I do a lot of advocacy work. But that's Winter. That's really who I am.
Amazing. Hey, everybody, those who are coming on, thank you for liking or loving this broadcast so far. Make sure you stay tuned and make sure you also share this with every woman you know. Okay? Everybody you know, you definitely want to get your tea because it's going to go down. All right. So before we get started, I always do an icebreaker. So my first question is if you could write a movie about your life, what would you call it? And who would you want to play you? So if you guys want to chime in, tell us, what would be the name of your movie and who you want to star in your movie, go ahead and put that in the comments.
Wow. I would definitely want Nia Long to play me.
Okay, I can see that for you.
Man, what would I call it? Seasons. Because I feel like my life has gone through some seasons. I think I would like for it to be called Seasons.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And Nia Long is really good. She would be perfect.
I think so too, right? She's one of my favorites. So I would want her to play me if I had to select someone.
Amazing. So you guys know I always use a scripture before I get started, and I didn't get a chance to grab one, but we're going to talk about intuition. And so the definition of intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need of conscious reasoning. That is what intuition is. So now we're going to jump right into the question I'm sure everybody's wondering. When did you first discover the signs that something was going on with your husband?
So I will say for me, there's two different sides to this. You know what I mean? Like there's the side, of course, when I finally was confronted with the reality of what was going on. And then of course there's those things that I feel like we tend to overlook. And I feel like my intuition was way ahead of what actually transpired. And so for me, it was at our engagement dinner with our family. There was an incident that occurred that really, at that time, made me want to postpone our wedding. And unfortunately, I didn't get the support from our premarital counselor. And, of course, he said, he would work on this, that, and the other. But deep down, it was just a huge alarm that triggered me to be like, maybe you want to give this just a little bit more time. And I know for a fact, he was very anxious to move forward. But when I think back to that incident, my knower knew. I that's the best way I can explain it. Once we said I do, quite frankly, our honeymoon was a huge indicator that something was off. We argued the entire time. We had pleasant moments, but it just wasn't what I thought it was. And I would have never put him on blast. You know what I mean? You want to do your best. I feel like, especially as a Christian wife, you want to cover your spouse. But I actually contacted my mom and told her I didn't know if I had made the right decision. Fast forward about 2 months after that, there was a couple of incidents that happened back to back. And I personally called my mom and said, I think I should get this annulled. I wrote her again and told her, I really think I should get this annulled. And if I don't do it now, I feel like I'm going to regret it later. And unfortunately, at the time, she was in support of him and the union. So she was like, it's too soon. Give it some time. And I understand her position as well. When a person really hasn't shown you anything to cause you to question it, then of course you're like, okay, why are you feeling this way? I personally take responsibility because I wish I had just had the courage that despite her, lack of agreement with what I was feeling, I should have just moved forward because again, my knower was spot on. It was just, when I look back at a lot of the text exchanges, it was a lot of narcissistic traits that were coming out. And the manipulative conversation and the gaslighting was at an all-time high. Like I literally sent one of the text messages that he sent to me, to my family and close friends, and their mouths dropped open. And my mom was like, well, if you had sent me that, I would have told you to get the heck up out of it. But again, trying to keep, marriage issues separate from intermingling with family. And I think so often this is where so many of us go wrong. We don't know when we should say something, and we don't know when we should actually cover. But we had gotten into postmarital counseling fairly early on, which is also another sign. I don't feel like as newlyweds that you should be going into postmarital counseling 2 months after you say I do. And the fact that we actually needed it very desperately was a huge red flag. I just knew at that moment, I did not see us lasting long at all. I really didn't. And so fast forward to the actual demise, I received a message from someone that was closely connected with him. And basically they sent me like a bombshell of a message with attachments and screenshots that backed up what they were alleging. And I was just like, you have got to be freaking kidding me. A lot made sense. I will say that a lot made sense. And at that point, based off of the trials and tribulations we had been having, which is interesting because he paints a very different picture and likes to focus on the things that he did, not necessarily focusing on the actual issues. And I think so often people who tend to manipulate situations in relationships will do that. They don't focus on the issues. They'll focus on the shiny balls. And I'm like, no, we had issues for a year straight. And this was literally like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I knew at that moment, I didn't care who was supporting me. I was out that joint. Like, I will deal with judgment, consequences, criticism, being made fun of. It was not gonna trump me exiting that situation. And I'm glad I exited when I did, because it just continued to get more and more crazy. So much so we were separated for a full 6 or 7 months. You know what I mean? Like, our legal separation date was over a year ago. And it was so difficult dealing with a person who wasn't willing to accept the demise. It just almost shocked me that there could be such a devout belief system when it came to not having a biblical reason for divorce, but not having a moral compass that would govern why they shouldn't do other things that were morally not right. Like, how do you have a moral compass for this, but not for that? And I think that sort of dichotomy in the situation it's like, okay, I don't have time for this. Life is too short. He was tremendously older than me. I regret not staying true to my preferences, because I didn't prefer to marry older as it was. I was being, open. I really was, and giving him a specific fair chance. But it just did not, it really tanked. My kids were not happy. It's interesting because in the show, as the situation plays out, he makes a statement that he was concerned about my youngest being upset about our divorce. And she was like, I don't know where he got that from. Like, none of my kids even cared. They were so happy when he left, because I think people kind of underestimate how much a person's presence can bring the atmosphere of a house down if they're not in right standing in their own spirits. And that's something that we were experiencing real time. And my kids were happy when he left. Like, they were like, thank Jesus. So there would have not been any reconciling based off the fact that my kids were uncomfortable. And my daughter said, if you reconcile with him, I'm out. And she lived with me full time. And my kids had never interfered or given any ultimatums. But she said, I cannot live in a house with him. I refuse. And when your kids are saying things like that, when they're typically fair, then you got to hear them out. But I was already like, I'm good. There was no hope for reconciliation. The things were so egregious. And once we really started breaking down what was going on, he was trying to convince my mom that I was clinically depressed. And it was just insane. I felt like I was in the middle of a Lifetime movie. Like, I'm not even joking. So for me, it was more so with getting out when I did, getting out with my sanity, and getting out just in time to where there wasn't real tremendous damage done, which there could have been, because it was some serious stuff going on. So I'm just grateful that I finally found the courage to be like, you know what, I'm gonna take the L here. This was not a good decision, but I would rather take an L now than to sit there and try to save face and take an L later, which I believe would have been a much bigger L. So it just made sense for me. But it wasn't an easy divorce process because he fought it tooth and nail.
Wow. Wow. Hey, Shantae, good to see you. Oh, she said she needs to see Neil on for you too for your movie. And hi, Dominique. Thank you for tuning in. Good to see you. This was, I mean, like I said, my mouth dropped when I emailed you. I'm like, what? You guys were just on at the conference.
Yeah.
But the biggest two things that I just got from this, the first thing was there's no accountability. I feel like accountability is attractive. And then if you at least admit and try to fix something, that shows that you care about the relationship.
Yes.
You take full ownership, not part of it, but the full thing. Because anytime you do something, it's going to affect the household.
Yes.
And like you said, kids, and I was just talking to somebody earlier today about how kids can feed off of energy, especially I'm a teacher, so I know kids know fake from a mile away, instantly. They'll tell you the truth in your face. So kids know, and you gotta be careful because kids, they'll be honest and upfront with you about you. And so for your kids to automatically say, "We're so happy he's gone," that was I'm sure it was a big relief for you and your kids. They probably saw some stuff too.
Oh yeah, they were very vocal. Once he was out, they started singing like mockingbirds. They were very vocal about some things that occurred. My son actually said his scene actually didn't make the cut, but we actually have this filmed, and he said he felt like he was more, it wasn't about getting to know them. It was about appearing to get to know them to bag me.
That should have been aired because a lot of people out here need to hear that.
Yeah.
And that is not fair. That's not fair. And that's happening to a lot of people. People are attached to you because of the benefits of you.
Yeah.
Versus actually wanting to be present. And I was just talking to one of my girls one morning on my way to work. I said, you know what? I want to be with a man who actually wants to get to know Shantanique.
Yes.
Like I'm sure I'm not the only one out here that feel like I want somebody to actually get to know me, not what I do and lurking on. No. Who actually wants to take the time to actually get to know me, and because they want to, not because they have to, or they want the benefits of it. And that's not fair. And that right there, that should have been aired. Your son should have been spot on and credited for that.
Yeah.
But the accountability was one thing. And the second thing was protecting your peace. Ladies, dealing with a man who is not meeting you where you are, should not you holding on to that, it should not dictate your peace. Like you should want to hold on to your peace more so than a man who's not meeting you where you need him, where he needs you to be. Where you need him to be in your life. Like you don't, it's not worth it. Because you're vulnerable and you're like, okay, I'm gonna settle for this. No, don't settle. That's not what God wants for his daughters. He don't want us to settle for a man who's not going to be true to the word, to his own word. Like oh my gosh, he said so much on my platform before. And so just thinking about that, and now what happened, I'm like, wow, you gotta practice what you preach. Like, we're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. But what you're not going to do is say all those things, and you're not mirroring none of those things. That's what you're not going to do.
I love that there are so many witnesses. I felt no need to defend because there was enough out there that with the information that was provided to where there was not one person that was like, Winter, you are wrong for leaving. Everyone was like, nope, I completely get it. Not one person, because it was just the best word I can say is it was just deceptive in so many ways. But let's speak to the whole peace thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of church culture, and
Uh-oh.
I really believe he banked on this, that I valued my image more than I valued my peace. And
That's it right there.
I believe that he wholeheartedly thought that my image would keep me in that marriage.
Oh, no, honey.
At
No, no,
40
no.
years old, my image can go down the toilet. What I do value is my peace. And I will not remain in a relationship that disrupts it, that disrupts the peace of my children, that disrupts the peace of my family. Like, I was like, oh no, you really don't know. But I also, too, one of the things I had to work out in therapy is, why did I settle in the first place?
That's
Because
good.
there was a level of settling, because I never wanted to marry that much older anyway. Like, I really, really, really didn't want to marry. And again, I commend myself for being open and trying to try something different. But honestly, once we got married, it was exactly as I thought it was. You know what I mean? Like, the huge age difference was very difficult to overcome. He was not my best friend.
Y'all hear this?
Not anywhere close. And it's one of those things where when I actually wrote him to really just release him, I honestly took ownership and I said, I should have actually stopped myself from walking down the aisle to marry you, because I knew I was not walking down the aisle to marry my best friend. And I think so often I've said this often recently, that we are so heavily minded, we're no earthly good. And we do not honestly get out of the clouds to realize that we honestly have to do day-to-day life with a person.
Mm.
And there's only so much praying you can do, but when you get up off your knees, you still got to do life with the person. And I was so incredibly unhappy a lot of the times. He noticed how checked out I was. I would be on my phone. I didn't want to. I literally was so annoyed with dealing with him, because there was no real friendship. Things that I would make jokes about or laugh and have a good time and just casual conversation, he legit, it would go over his head. He didn't understand it. But again, we're talking about two different generations too.
Yeah.
So it kind of got annoying over time to have to continuously explain a joke that, my friends would naturally get, because we're in the same generation. So I had to fault myself for truly walking down the aisle with someone I knew wasn't my best friend. He would say I was his best friend, and I would never agree with him, because that was a blatant lie. I believe he was more
Mm-hmm.
sold out to the idea of me, your wife being your best friend. But I'm like, just because I'm the only woman you talk to does not mean I am your best friend. I really feel like I settled big time. I really, really settled. And I think time is your best vetter.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough time to vet him. There wasn't enough time to vet his intentions. There wasn't enough time to vet his motives. I wholeheartedly think I was a catch for him, but he was not a catch for me.
Ooh.
And I had to wrestle with getting a number of messages from people who could actually spiritually see right through the fact that, for as much as he was head over heels in love with me, quote unquote in love, and I say that loosely, his idea of being in love, they could tell I did not feel the same way. And I remember distinctly a older lady messaging me, and she said, Winter, she said, I don't need to know what's going on. And she had no clue. Actually, we were separated at the time. She said, I don't need to know what's going on, but I feel like something is going on with your marriage. And she said, all I will say to you is that I have watched a couple of lives with you and your husband. And what has always stuck out to me is that you have never looked at him with the type of eyes that I believe you deserve. And she said, you deserve to look at a man as if you are as happy to have him the same way he's happy to have you. And she said, you deserve to be knee slapping happy. And she said, again, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to be praying for you. But please remember, you deserve that. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, because it was further confirmation of how much I had settled. I have never and had never expressed publicly how dissatisfied I was in that marriage. And we had only been together a year. I couldn't imagine. I think I personally would have just died a slow, painful death, because it was absolute torture at times, because we just weren't in sync. And I know for a fact we would have never gotten in sync, because we were just too different. So I took that information and I had to forgive myself for whatever reason that drove me to settle in this situation. And it's so funny, because I think so many times we over spiritualize everything, and it's really gotten me out of that. Oh, I believe I heard from God. He's my husband. We're so super deep. We're so super deep. Sometimes we manufacture these thoughts from God, and the Holy Spirit is like, I didn't say that. Because the reality is that a lot of the things that I found out later, God already knew.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we overlook those roadblocks that are being put in place. I'll never forget, on our wedding day, our photographer told us we should cancel the wedding.
See, yeah.
I believe
All the signs were there.
I believe I never knew that. He intercepted that conversation.
Yes.
But that roadblock, I believe, was a Holy Ghost roadblock. And I don't believe something that's truly meant for God, or truly meant to be from God, will have that many roadblocks. You know what I mean? Like,
listen,
it was clear that it was winter pause, winter, pump the brakes. And when I tell you, once I got into it, and time began to pass and more issues began to unravel, it was just insane. And I thought, Lord, you are going to have to walk me through this. But when I tell you, it was more difficult untangling. It has been more difficult untangling myself from this man, whom I was only married to for 1 year solid, than it was untangling myself from my ex-husband, and we were married for 15 years.
That's crazy.
When I tell you, my ex-husband, we didn't even have to have attorneys. And we were dividing property. We were like dividing like NFL stuff, like NFL money. Okay. We didn't have to have any attorneys. We never had to go to court. We mediated everything ourselves. Our divorce was done in a year. Our divorce was done in a year. And the only reason why it took that long was because the NFL dragged their feet with their paperwork.
Okay.
It took longer to mediate, like literally. The process was such a headache. And I was like, how? Like, this is why you don't get involved. Like, this is why marriage is such a serious commitment. You got to know who you're getting in bed with. If I had done my homework, I would have known it was an absolute pain to deal with him. Like, all of his exes have the same experience. And these are things I just simply didn't know. And I think the craziest thing is that as believers, we're taught not to take each other to court. And I would venture to say this person loves court, loves taking people to court, loves dealing with, legalities. It's just, and it's been insane. At some point, you would think that one of the things I love about my ex-husband is that when I finally made the decision to leave, was he happy about it? No. But he had owned the L in a way that he said, at the very least I can give you is peace in this process. And let me know what you want. I won't fight you on it. Literally. And to this day, it has enabled us to have such a peaceful co-parenting relationship. We have no issues whatsoever. None.
That's good.
But I believe at that point, regardless of his shortcomings in our marriage, he didn't let that override his common sense, and he didn't let that override his responsibility as a man. It was no longer about fighting, because again, two have to agree for a marriage to work. But when a person is clearly saying, no, I don't want this anymore, then at some point the person has to operate in grace. And it's like the Bible says, then give your wife the certificate of divorce. He didn't fight me. And this has been the complete opposite. It's kind of like I've been in a war zone.
So I want everybody to remember this. She's talking about her first husband right now. That
Yes.
actually honored and respect the transition and gave her peace as they were transitioning and splitting everything during her first, just her first marriage. Yes. Now go ahead and talk about the other one.
Yeah. The other one, not so much.
Because he was about himself. He had narcissistic tendencies. So he was all about, he was in a selfish mind, state of mind.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really caring about your spirit.
My best friend was like, this divorce has taken almost as long as you guys were married. Make that make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the crazy part, It don't make sense. But I really caution both men and women, do your homework on these people. Do your homework. Don't be afraid to hire your private investigator to vet out these wolves in sheep's clothing. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to message exes. I wish I had her.
Yeah.
I wish I had her.
Save some time and energy.
Yes, it's worth doing the extra work. And I really feel like, my best friend made a comment, and I absolutely agree with him. He said, if any man has an issue with you contacting the mother of his children, leave him alone.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I tell you what, my child's mother, my children's mother, we have had our good days and our bad days, but she will wholeheartedly tell you, he take care of his kids. He takes care of his kids. He said, you should wholeheartedly be able to freely access a significant other's child's mother or child's father. Like, hands down, I would have no issue introducing my children's father to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Not an issue.
That's a level of security too.
Yes, you need to know a person is handling their responsibilities that predate you. And I think for me, that was another eye-opening thing for me, was to hear from his children's mother that was not the case. Mm. And that didn't add up for me. You cannot try to flying me from here to Cancun and you're not handling your response. I was very disheartened to hear that. As a mom who has 4 children who, deal with their dad, and he's never missed a child support payment, you'll never hear me talk bad about him. Man ain't never shirked his responsibility. He has never. And my daughter is 20 years old. 20. In 20 years, this man has 6 kids. He has never missed a child support payment on one. Ever. So I don't excuse that at all. I don't want to hear no BS excuses. I feel like if a man really cares about his child, he will go work at Walmart to make sure his child has what they need. And the fact that I had to hear that there was no consistency in either case. See, I used to have a rule. I wouldn't date men with more than one mother.
Okay.
More than one baby's mother. Yeah. And I made an exception because there was a portrayal that things were on top, and it was just too much. It was too much being revealed. I was like, Lord, Jesus.
That math wasn't mathing.
The math didn't math at all. Nothing that was told was actually honest. And I spoke to one of his child's mothers, and she said, assume that whatever he says is a lie. That's literally what she told me. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, assume that everything he says is a lie. Yep. I can assure you that there has never been a consistent child support payment made. And in fact, he is in arrears as we speak. And I was just sick about it. I was sick about it. I really was, because I advocate for fathers' rights, but to see this so grossly handled, and there was just such a gross negligence that I almost could not stomach it. Like, I was Like, I was floored. I could honestly say based off of that alone, I wasn't willing to remain. Because again, I came into the situation under false securities that those things were being handled and taken care of. And I don't know how you can, as an adult, male or female, feel comfortable traveling all over the place and you're not being consistent in your responsibilities, your financial responsibilities to your children. And so unfortunately there was always a lot of focus. After we separated, I would get these emails. I finally just blocked it all. Don't contact me ever again. Like,
That's
I don't
real.
want your emails bragging about how much you've done for me.
What?
Yes. Bragging. What are you going to tell your audience after they've seen me do this, that, and the other for you? I was like, this is insane.
These people be peopling out here, because the guy I was dating was trying to size me up, and I don't want to go into this, but when a man has been caught and he don't want to face responsibility, he'll try to gaslight you.
Yeah.
But you cannot gaslight me, because I'm not that one. Okay, I know whose and whose I am, and these men be trying to do that. So women be doing the same thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. There are women gaslighters.
But I don't want to go into that. That's a whole nother thing. You guys gotta make sure you check out Love and Marriage. Is it, I'm saying it right? Love and Marriage, DC. Make sure you guys tap in. There's some clips on YouTube. You guys need to check out the episodes. There was one that I saw, and you were kind of, and I want to jump into this because we kind of talked about your kids, how they felt about the relationship already. I want to address two things. First thing is what Quinny said. This is eye-opening. I bet a lot of women felt this way going down the aisle, but felt like they had to stick with it and stay with it no matter what. Now, there's a coach, Esther, I can't remember her last name, but she's a white woman, older lady. I follow her on Instagram, and she's a relationship coach. And she says, if you are in something that you need to get out of, you need to have an exit plan. Yep. And you teach your daughters about having an exit plan.
Yep.
I would say have an exit plan even in friendships as well. Okay? Like, what does that mean? You need to have your own separate account. Have your money, have your other place together. Those things are important, because if you're unhappy, why would you stay somewhere when you're unhappy? Your spirit is uneasy. I know for me in my house, I'm not gonna let nobody come and disrupt the peace that I've built.
Yeah.
So the same thing for you. If you build peace in your life, don't let nobody come and disrupt that peace that you have placed in your life and that happiness, because you should be happy and at peace when they leave.
Amen to that.
But if you don't have happiness and peace right now, you need to work on that before they come.
Yeah.
And if they're already in your life right now, you need to set some boundaries in what you want, how you want the house to be. Because the thing is, when you drive up to your house, you should not be dreading to go into your house, not the house you pay for. I don't know why I just went there, but you should not be dreading walking into your house. Oh, let me sit in this car. No, I'm happy to drive home and get into my house.
Yeah.
So stop me if I'm lying. No one wants to drive home and dread to go home. You should be driving home knowing that I'm going to my sanctuary. Thank you, Jesus. I can go here and release. That's how it should be for your house. But a lot of people don't have structure. They don't have boundaries. None of those things in their home.
Yeah.
A happy life is not happy wife. Everybody should be happy. Everybody should be at peace. It's how you set up your atmosphere in your home and the foundation. Start with the man and the woman. But I don't even want to go into, I'm not sure his background, his upbringing. That's a whole nother thing. I can't go, I don't want to go into that. We don't have much time. But I do want to ask this question before I ask the last one. What are your thoughts on prenuptial agreements? Because that is a big thing. We've been talking about that everywhere. And I've always been the one to think if anything happens, you still want to protect what you built by yourself. If you build it by yourself.
Because I was put in a situation of having to fight this person for something that he had nothing to do with, I wholeheartedly believe in them going forward. We live in a different day and age. We cannot think that the world we live in is like the world that our grandmothers and great grandmothers lived in. And there is a protection that is needed because you just really never know. If someone had told me, 2 years ago that I would be going through the things that I'm going, that I had to walk through this last year, I would have been like, oh, you lying. He's too crazy about me. He would never. Child, by the things that I have had to witness, I'm like, who is this person? I believe in it. It's easy to say what you do and don't need until you realize you wish you had it.
Okay.
If you never need it, fantastic. But God forbid you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we live in a fallen world and humans always have free will. Sometimes we let spirituality override our God doggone common sense. And I wish I had one because I probably would have been, if this would be over and done with. You know what I mean? Like it would have been over and done with very quickly. It wouldn't have taken as long as it did.
So, I hope you guys are hearing this. So a
lot of unnecessary money that is spent.
Yeah.
When a prenuptial agreement can shut it down. And you just never know. Some people fight over stuff just to drag stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
So a prenuptial agreement will actually shut that down. I had to really actively forgive almost every day earlier this year because it was just like the intentional delay. It was so funny. The person was still citing that there was still hope for reconciliation. Like it was a level of delusion that I have never seen. Y'all, it's one thing to believe God for some reconciliation, but don't be stupid.
Yeah.
It takes two people. God is not changing my heart. I promise you. Quite frankly, I wish I had never done it. Like I'm all the way there. There ain't no way I'm getting from there to reconciling. Ain't nothing to reconcile. My kids don't like you, and I borderline don't like you. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm. Yeah, go on and get. Like, yeah.
I believe in prenups. I do.
I hope y'all hearing this. Y'all better talk about them prenuptial agreements. Quinny said, folks, men especially, love comparing modern women to the way their grandmamas were. When grandmama couldn't even open up a bank account with the permission signature of her husband. Oh, Lord. Yeah. Yeah. You ladies, protect yourselves. Definitely do your homework. Like Winter said, your intuition, it never lies. Your discernment, it never lies. You don't need to go on Maury. You don't need to go on Sally. You don't need to go on none of them shows. You don't need to hire cheaters. He'll show you in a vision, and then you start seeing patterns, and then that's when you start doing the research. But you don't have to be going and lurking. You ain't have to do. The problem will come to you. You don't have to go to the problem. It's gonna come right to you. Them signs and the patterns you're gonna see it along the way. You just have to be smart enough to get out of it. What does my spirit need? What does my sanity need most? How do I want my household to be ran?
Yeah.
I want my peace. So I don't know who this is for tonight, but I hope that we are helping a lot of women and men out there to get yourself together because no one is trying to waste their time, like at all. There was an episode you were bombarded during dinner, before dinner with Ashley, a question about your field of expertise. I have to say this because we're influencers and people will be trying you because they're unhappy. They're unhappy. How did that make you feel? And what message do you have for anyone who is looking to become a coach, walk into business? Because people are going to size you up because as high as you go, the new level, new devil.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to be confident in who you are, and you have to understand that God doesn't always call the qualified, he qualifies the called. I'm a firm believer in that. But you also have to believe that God has qualified you. There's not a human on this earth that has the capacity to snatch away your gifts. Your gifts are your gifts. Your talents are your talents. So often I think we're influenced by the approval of other people, but who are people really? Who are they? And so in that moment, I was definitely put off by that comment. But at the end of the day, I had to assess the situation. And I really had to ask myself, who are they? Who are they? Do they have the right? No. Just like I wouldn't have a right to say that they weren't qualified. Failures do not disqualify you. Oftentimes, it is through our failures that we learn the most wisdom and experience.
Come on.
And so I was just like, absolutely not. I wasn't having that at all, which of course sparks a whole lot of drama for the remainder of the season. But I'm not going to be demeaned by humans who
That's
have
right.
flaws, who
That's
make
right.
mistakes. Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it happens. I feel like sometimes we have a tendency to pick at people's failures because we feel like it somehow makes us superior.
Yes.
But what
It
I
makes you
love about
weaker.
Yeah, but what I love about the God I serve is that the very thing that people will use to pick at you will be the very thing that God uses to elevate you. And
Yes.
even though I was the underdog, I'm not quite so much the underdog anymore. And a little old friend of the show has definitely raised a lot of talk and communication. So to God be the glory. I think he can use it all. I would have never thought that this experience would have landed me in this position, but I am a firm believer that God will cause all things to work together for our good. And
Yes.
so he's just allowed it to work for my good, and I continue to grow and evolve. And I still believe in love. Excuse me. I'm a hopeless romantic in that aspect, and I do believe that love is out there for me. And I said this, I think earlier today or maybe even yesterday. One of the things I absolutely will not compromise on is marrying my best friend. I got to know that the person I'm walking down the aisle to is literally my best friend and a
Mm-hmm.
person I wholeheartedly would trust with my entire life. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I didn't do that this time. I settled and I did not walk down the aisle to someone who was my best friend. I'll never do that ever. Um, I will, if I say I do, and if that's to happen, and if that's in the God's plan for me, it will be my best friend.
Yes. I love it. Yes. Yes. Quinn said was the last thing we're gonna wrap it up. What made you so relatable was that you were open about having gone through hard things. You were not performing. You were you. Yes. I was on your live the other day. I don't think you noticed I was on there, and she was just sharing her heart. And I said, I want to go on that show and just tell them ladies off. Like, you don't be talking to my watcher like that. Like, you don't know. Like, what, but I know I'm like, it's a reality TV, and you gotta have your drama. But I want to say that Winter stood her ground, y'all. Like, no matter what, she stood her ground, owned her truth. And that's the problem with a lot of people. They get kind of intimidated because you stand in your truth, and they try to egg on to see if they
Yeah.
can get something else out of you. Like, no, this is me. I'm not changing. This is who I am. Like, what are you looking for? There's nothing to look for. This is it. How you gonna be? Why y'all being so deep? It's not really deep. But
Yeah.
that's that perception, and it's dangerous when you're off. But I don't want to go into that. You guys, thank you so much for being on with us. I'm about to head over to IG really quick. Do a recap. We'll be on week after next with Troy Rawlings' daughter. Her name is Zoe Rawlings, and we'll be talking about bullying is not okay. We're getting ready for back to school, and she's going to be sharing her experience as a kid in school, and help some parents out on how to help their children get ready to go back to school and deal with their social emotional needs. So you guys know I bring it to you. I give you guys a lot of things that other people are not talking about. And I know this is a big thing because of what happened in Texas, with the shooting and other things going on with our nation. So I really want to help our children and our parents be more secure when it comes to going back to school, and of course dealing with academics and dealing with your social life too. That's very important. So Winter, tell the people where you are. Your single that's out. She got a song called "Sign My Papers." I need to get it. Go ahead.
Yes. So if you go to my website, it's simplywinter.com. It has literally all of my information, my social media handles. It's IG and Facebook and Twitter. You can look me up and connect with me there, or you can find me on YouTube. But I would highly suggest just going to my website. That's where you can check out my latest single. You can check out my retreats. You can check out my merch. You can sign up for courses. That's really the hub for all things winter.
All right, there you have it, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you all in my next video. Have a good night.